Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most unpredictable, edge-of-your-seat, low-scoring thrillers in all of one-day international cricket history. If you've ever watched a game and thought it was completely decided by the halfway point, well, prepare to have your assumptions completely shattered.
Okay, let's dive right into this. 105. Just take a second to process that number. In modern cricket, where totals easily soar past the 300 mark, 105 is barely a warm-up. How on earth could a world-class team possibly defend such a pitiful total after getting completely bowled out? To really understand the sheer magnitude of this miracle, we've got to start from the very first ball. So, the stage was set at the Shri Bangla National Stadium in Mirpur. Bangladesh wins the toss, takes one look at the conditions, and boom, immediately puts India into bat. The tension was palpable right from the get-go. Robin Uthappa barely scraped off the mark on the very first delivery, awkwardly steering a ball off his pads down to fine leg for a scrappy leg bye. It wasn't exactly a confident start, and unfortunately for India, it was a grim preview of what was about to happen.
And, well, the disaster began pretty much immediately. Very first over, Ajinkya Rahane gets trapped LBW, walking back to the pavilion without a single run to his name. Then Taskin Ahmed really starts turning the screws. By the 8th over, Uthappa, who actually managed to find the boundary a couple of times, mistimes a shot and is caught for 14. Barely an over later, Ambati Rayulu falls for just 1. The Indian wickets were literally dropping like dry autumn leaves.
And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute chaos out in the middle. On one hand, you've got Suresh Raina attempting this brave, super aggressive counterattack. He walks in, immediately goes after the bowlers, and smashes these beautiful boundaries off both Mortaza and Taskin Ahmed to try and relieve some pressure. But on the other side, complete and utter capitulation. While Raina was fighting tooth and nail, his teammates were getting completely stuck in the single digits, just totally unable to read the pitch or the pace.
But man, the batting nightmare just kept going. That Mirpur pitch, it seemed absolutely impossible for the Indian batters to figure out. Taskin Ahmed removes Cheteshwar Pujara for just 11. Ridhiman Saha manages to scrape together a measly 5 runs before being sent back. And then, the ultimate dagger. On the very last ball of the 17th over, the lone warrior Suresh Raina narrowly misses a quick single and gets run out. At that point, the middle order hadn't just crumbled, it had completely disintegrated.
The result of all that disintegration? A shocking 66 for 6 at the end of just 17 overs. Think about that for a second. Half of the entire Indian batting lineup was already sitting back in the dressing room. It's an incredibly dire situation. Spectators and fans were honestly just hoping the team could somehow drag themselves past the 100-run mark just to save a little face.
So how in the world did they even scramble to 105? Honestly, they had to rely on this desperate tail-end resistance. Akshar Patel comes in and hits a few quick boundaries to bump the score up, but the wickets keep tumbling, with Amit Mishra falling at 86. Then, Umesh Yadav walks in. Showing incredible bravery, he hits a boundary straight down the ground, cleverly scoops a bouncer over the keeper, and then absolutely smashes a massive 6 just to drag India over the 100-run mark. But the resistance was super short-lived. By the 26th over, India is completely bowled out.
The contrast at the innings break was practically cinematic. Out in the stands, the home crowd is absolutely electric. The Bangladeshi fans are already dancing, waving their flags, and fully celebrating what they assumed was an easy, guaranteed win. Meanwhile, inside the Indian dressing room, the reality was incredibly grim. They practically had nothing on the board to defend.
So, when Bangladesh comes out to bat, they clearly wanted to make a statement. They weren't just looking for a win, they were looking to absolutely humiliate. They signal their aggressive intent instantly by smashing a boundary on the very first ball of the chase. The body language of those players, it suggested they fully intended to wrap this whole match up in just 15 or 20 overs and head home early.
But hey, cricket is a funny game, right? Literally, the very next delivery of that opening over, Rohit Sharma finds the edge of Tamim Iqbal's bat, and he's caught behind. Suddenly, that roaring crowd goes completely dead silent. By the 3rd over, Mohit strikes again, sending Animal Hawk back to the pavilion for a duck. These were the very first cracks in the chase. The home crowd, who had just been partying, suddenly looked a bit nervous.
Now, Bangladesh wasn't just going to roll over that easily. Mithun and Mushfiqur Rahim stepped up to steady the ship. Mithun was super aggressive, totally utilizing Umesh Yadav's raw pace to hit back-to-back boundaries. Mushfiqur starts off a bit more cautious, but pretty soon joins in on the action. Together, they relentlessly pushed the score up to 44. The momentum was firmly shifting back to the home team, and you could hear the celebrations in the stands slowly starting to rev back up. Which brings us to a seemingly impossible question. At 44 for 2, chasing a measly 105, could India actually pull off a miracle? I mean, the math heavily favored Bangladesh. But this is exactly where the game transforms from a standard cricket match into absolute sporting legend. Because what was about to happen next is something literally nobody in that stadium could have ever predicted.
Now, what's really interesting here is the collapse of staggering speed that followed. Enter Stuart Binney. In the 12th over, he forces Mushfiqur to edge one right behind the keeper. Then, in the 14th over, he breaks that crucial resistance by dismissing Mithun exactly at the 50-run mark. By the 16th over, Mortaza falls to Binney as well. It was just this systematic, surgical dismantling of the Bangladeshi batting order.
And look, while Binney is applying massive pressure on one end, Rohit Sharma is just dropping bombs on the other. Then came this absolutely devastating 15th over. Mohit storms in and completely breaks the back of the lineup by dismissing the wildly dangerous Shakib Al-Hassan on the very first ball. And in that exact same over, he sends Ziaur Rahman packing too. The chaos out in the middle was just absolute.
From that point on, it was honestly like a massive storm had hit the stadium. Stuart Binney triggers this torrential collapse. He picks up the remaining wickets in such astonishingly quick succession that it literally felt like it was raining wickets on the pitch. The Bangladeshi batsmen were just totally capitulating under the intense pressure, and the stadium was left in a state of sheer, unadulterated disbelief.
I really want you to let these numbers sink in for a second. 6 wickets for just 4 runs. I mean, that is just a complete statistical absurdity. Stuart Binney delivered one of the most magical, record-breaking bowling spells in the history of the entire format. In the blink of an eye, he forced the opposition to surrender, sealing a comeback that defied all logic.
And that incredible, mind-blowing spell brings us to this dramatic final number, 58. That was the entirety of the Bangladesh innings. A team that had confidently walked out aiming to chase 105 in 15 overs was completely bundled out for just 58 runs, completing one of the most massive batting collapses ever witnessed on that ground.
So the crucial point here is that India, a team bowled out for a seemingly hopeless 105, actually secured a massive 47-run victory. The bowlers achieved the absolute impossible by trusting their line, their length, and never ever letting the pressure drop.
Which leaves us with this final thought. When you look back at the Mirpur miracle, it completely redefines how we view the game. In a sport where momentum can shift so violently in just a matter of overs, is any total ever truly indefensible? The next time you see a team bowled out for a low score, remember this incredible explainer. Because as we've just seen, the game isn't over until that final wicket falls. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning.